All right, strap yourselves in because today we're diving deep, deep into the locked door.
Oh, yeah.
And this story is one of those that really gets under your skin. It sticks with you.
It
We're going to break it all down,
yeah.
all the chills, the psychological stuff, and maybe even some of the hidden meanings. You know, the stuff that maybe you missed on the first read.
Just stuff that lurks beneath.
Exactly.
I think one of the things that I find so fascinating about The Locked Door is the way that it just blends so effortlessly these classic horror elements, like the haunted house, but it's blended with this deep exploration of grief and isolation.
Yeah.
It's like the house itself is a reflection of David's inner state.
Yeah, it's not just a haunted house story, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's about a man who is dealing with loss. He's trying to find refuge, a place to hide, and he ends up choosing this place. But it seems like the place he chooses just makes his anxieties even worse.
Right.
So we've got David. He's a recent widower.
Mm-hmm.
And he retreats to this old, secluded house. Like, come on, dark wood, creaky floors, the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? So practically got a neon sign on it that says haunted.
Right.
But I'm curious, was that intentional on the author's part? Are they trying to set us up for, a ghost story, a supernatural encounter, or is this house meant to be like a symbol, of David's grief?
See, that's what makes it so brilliant.
Yeah.
It keeps us guessing the whole time. The
Yeah.
setting, you're right, it could be interpreted literally. It could be just a haunted house. And it plays on those fears we all have of the unknown.
Yeah.
But it also functions as a symbolic space,
Right.
representing David's, psychological state. I mean, think about it. He's surrounded by darkness, right? He's trapped in this structure that's just decaying around him. It mirrors his internal struggle with grief and isolation.
It's like the house is closing in on him,
Exact.
both physically and emotionally.
Huh.
And then when we get the scratching, at first it's subtle, then each night it gets louder, more intense, like,
Classic horror trope.
oh yeah, but so effective.
Yeah.
Like it just builds the suspense.
Absolutely. That slow burn,
Yeah.
that buildup of tension is key.
Yeah.
And remember, this scratching, it's not just any sound. It's coming from behind the walls.
Well, yeah.
This unseen space inside the house, which I think adds this other layer of unease.
Oh, for sure.
As humans, we just naturally associate those kinds of enclosed, hidden spaces
Right?
with secrets,
Right.
with danger.
Yeah, it's like, what's in there?
Exactly.
What don't we know?
It plays on that fear of what we can't see.
Right.
It's like the house itself is concealing something sinister.
Yeah. And if the scratching wasn't creepy enough, he finds this locked door in the basement. And get this, it wasn't even mentioned in the initial house tour.
Oh, yeah. The locked door.
This is where it gets good.
This is where the story really gets primal.
Uh-huh.
That locked door is a symbol, a universal symbol of the unknown, of what we're not supposed to know.
The forbidden.
Exactly, the
Yeah.
forbidden. Think about all the classic fairy tales.
Oh, yeah.
Bluebeard's Chamber,
Pandora's box.
Pandora's Box. We're inherently drawn to what's hidden, even if it could be dangerous.
It's like that, that urge to look,
Yes.
to see what's behind the curtain, even though you probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
But it's not just curiosity that's driving David, right? There's this sense that he's being pulled toward this door, almost like he's compelled to open it.
Right.
Like something on the other side is beckoning him.
Exactly. He's being called.
Yeah.
And that's when the whispers start,
Yo.
on the second night. They begin with this haunting, almost underwater quality. And they're calling David's name.
Oh, that's creepy.
That detail is crucial.
Yeah, it makes it personal.
Yes.
Like it's not just some random noise.
It's targeted.
It's targeted at him.
That David.
Is this where it becomes more supernatural?
This is where the lines start to blur. It makes you wonder. Are these whispers just in his head? Are they hallucinations brought on by his grief, and that heavy atmosphere of the house?
Yeah.
Or are they something more sinister? A manifestation of whatever could be lurking behind that locked door,
Right.
And
then it gets even more interesting because the whispers, they get more and more insistent each night.
They do.
Like, open the door, David.
Yeah, urging him, open the door.
Right. And it's like they're trying to, control his actions.
This is where the psychological tension really takes hold.
Yeah.
It plays on this idea of suggestion.
Right.
The power of those whispers to influence what David does, even if it's all in his head.
So he's trapped between his fear and this growing need to open the door. He knows he probably shouldn't, but it's like he can't resist.
Right, like something is pulling him towards
He gives in.
He does.
He grabs a crowbar.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
think that's a really important detail.
I think so too.
It shows this change in David.
He's not passive anymore.
He's taking
He's
control.
taking charge.
But is he really in control?
Right.
Or is he being manipulated by something he can't even see?
It's like the crowbar is the symbol of him trying to break free
Yes.
from the things that are holding him back.
Breaking through those barriers,
Yeah.
both literally and figuratively.
He's taking charge, but is he really in control? Because what he finds behind that door is both shocking and somehow even more scary.
Yeah, because he's expecting to find something monstrous, something tangible,
Yeah.
something that will justify all of this fear.
Right, right.
But instead he finds nothing,
Nothing.
just an empty room.
It's the ultimate letdown. But the story really emphasizes how silent it is in that room. And this chilling feeling that something is there even though you can't see it.
The negative space,
Right.
the emptiness, the lack of a real tangible threat becomes more unsettling than if there had been an actual monster there.
Oh, it's way scarier.
It's what we don't know, what we can't see.
That truly terrifies.
So we have this feeling of dread and anticipation,
Mm-hmm.
even though there's nothing there.
Mm.
And then, to make it all worse, the door slams shut.
Ugh. It's like the room itself is rejecting him,
Oh, wow.
trapping him in this emptiness he created by forcing the door open.
He went from aggressor to victim, like
Yes, completely isolated, cut off,
alone.
trapped in the silence of the empty.
Remember, he was searching for solitude,
Oh, yeah, he wanted to be alone.
and now he's truly alone.
That's rough. He's pounding on the door, yelling for help, but no one can hear him.
The irony,
Oh, it's thick.
so thick you could cut it with a knife.
And the story doesn't end there. The neighbors, they haven't seen him in days, so they call the cops, they find the door open. But David is gone,
Gone.
vanished.
Without a trace.
It's the ultimate cliffhanger.
Right.
It leaves us with so many questions.
All those unanswered questions.
Did he escape? Did something take him? Or was it all in his head?
That ambiguity is what makes it so haunting.
It really is. We're left to consider all the possibilities.
We fill in the blanks with our own fears.
Yes, our own interpretations.
And then there's that one detail at the end,
Uh-huh.
that note they find in the room.
Scratched, almost like it was carved.
It just says, do not open the door.
A warning.
Right.
From beyond.
Like a message from David himself, trapped somewhere between worlds.
Maybe.
It's like the story's telling us, hey, some doors are meant to stay closed.
Yeah, curiosity killed the cat.
Right. And sometimes being curious can have serious consequences.
Consequences we might not be ready for.
I think that's what makes this story so powerful.
It stays with you.
It makes you think,
It does.
and you're left with this feeling that something's not quite right.
This lingering sense of unease.
Yeah.
It just shows how powerful the story is. It uses simple things like a locked door and a few whispers, and it creates this incredible feeling of dread. It plays on our deepest fears,
Yeah.
fear of the unknown, fear of being alone, fear of losing control.
You mentioned control, and I think that's a big part of this story. I mean, David's trying to find some control by going to this house, isolating himself. But then the house itself seems to take over. It's like it manipulates him, leads him to that door.
Exactly. And the fact that the room is empty, that just adds another layer to this whole idea of control. It's like the story is saying that the scariest things aren't always the ones we can see. Sometimes it's the stuff we can't explain, the things we don't understand, the void, the emptiness. That's where our fears can really run wild.
Yeah, it's like our own imaginations become the monster. We fill that empty space with our worst nightmares. It reminds me of that Lovecraft quote. The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown.
Lovecraft was amazing at tapping into that primal fear. And The Locked Door definitely has some of those same themes.
Yeah.
The cosmic dread, the idea that there are things out there, things we can't even comprehend, and that we're basically powerless against them.
Man, that gives me chills just thinking about it. But it's not just the cosmic horror, it's how real the story feels. David's grief, his isolation, how anxious he gets. It's something we can all relate to, even if we haven't been in that exact situation.
Absolutely. It taps into a universal human experience. The
Yeah.
feeling of being overwhelmed, of being trapped in our own minds, unable to escape our thoughts and fears.
So is The Locked Door really about the supernatural? Or is it more about how our minds can create monsters out of nothing?
I think it's both. The story blurs the lines between reality and imagination, and it makes us question what's real and what's just in David's head. And that ambiguity, I think, is what makes it so effective. It
Yeah.
makes us face our own fears, our own uncertainties. It makes us ask ourselves, what if?
What is?
What if there are things out there we can't explain?
Oh,
What if our own minds are our worst enemy?
those are some heavy questions, but that's what I love about a good horror story. It doesn't just scare you, it makes you think.
It does.
It challenges how we see the world, how we see ourselves.
The Locked Door does that brilliantly. It's a story that sticks with you, you know? It keeps coming back to haunt you.
I know I'll be thinking about this one for a while, especially that note. Do not open the door. It's such a simple warning, but it's so powerful. It's like a reminder that some things are better left alone. That curiosity can sometimes lead us down a dangerous path.
But it's that same curiosity that drives us as humans. It makes us want to explore, to learn, to push the boundaries of what we know. It's part of who we are.
It's like we're hardwired to seek out the unknown,
Yeah.
even if it scares us. Maybe that's why we love horror stories so much.
Maybe.
They let us explore those fears safely.
Exactly. They give us a way to confront our fears, to understand them, maybe even laugh at them a little.
Yeah.
Because in the end, even the scariest stories are just stories. They're all in our heads.
And we have the power to control them.
Exactly. We can shape them. We can make them into something that empowers us instead of something that paralyzes us.
That's a great way to look at it. You're saying that horror stories can actually give us strength, help us be more resilient when faced with the unknown.
Absolutely. They remind us that we're not alone in our fears.
Yeah.
Everyone feels anxious. Everyone feels uncertain. And by facing those fears, even if it's just through a story, we can learn to deal with them, to overcome them. We can turn them into something that makes us stronger.
This deep dive has taken us to some interesting places. We started by breaking down the spooky parts of the story, and now we're talking about the nature of fear itself and how horror stories can actually help us understand those fears. It's like we've unlocked a whole new layer of meaning in The Locked Door.
That's what I love about deep dives. We can explore a story from all these different angles. We can look at its symbolism, connect it to bigger themes and ideas, and in doing so, we gain a deeper understanding of the power of stories and how they can help us understand what it means to be human.
I like that. Well said. So before we finish up our exploration of The Locked Door, I have one last question for you. What's the one thing you'd want our listeners to take away from this deep dive?
It's okay to be afraid. Fear is normal, it's human, and it has a purpose. It keeps us safe, it helps us avoid danger. But we don't have to let fear control our lives.
Right.
We can choose to face our fears, to try to understand them, maybe even embrace them a little.
Okay.
Because sometimes the things that scare us the most are the same things that can teach us the most about ourselves.
I like that. It's like you're saying fear can help us grow, help us learn who we are.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe what we find on the other side of that locked door will be more enlightening than terrifying.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like the story is telling us to be curious, yeah, but to be careful at the same time, to know that it's okay to be afraid, but not to let fear stop us from exploring.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance.
This whole deep dive has really changed how I see The Locked Door. You know, I started out thinking it was just a spooky story, but it's so much deeper than that. It's about grief, isolation, how easily we can be influenced. And ultimately, it's about the choices we make when we're faced with something we don't understand.
I agree. It's a story with many layers.
And it's a story that each of us can interpret in our own way, based on our own experiences and what we're afraid of.
That's what makes it so fascinating.
So to everyone listening, we hope this deep dive gave you a new perspective on The Locked Door, and maybe even sent a few shivers down your spine.
And remember, the next time you find yourself facing a locked door, maybe it's a challenge in your life, a creative block, or just the fear of trying something new.
Yeah, think of David's story. Think about those whispers of doubt trying to hold you back.
And remember the courage it takes to face those fears and open that door, even if you have no idea what's waiting on the other side.
Because sometimes the greatest discoveries, the things that change us the most, they're hiding just beyond the things that scare us.
Well said.
That's a wrap on our deep dive into The Locked Door. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and maybe keep a nightlight on just in case